What's up, fight fans? Welcome to Mr. Mustache MMA News. Today, I want to discuss last Saturday's UFC 310, the card in its entirety, the full recap. But before we get into it, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to continue getting more MMA content by yours truly and help the channel grow. All right, guys, getting right into it. I mean, from top to bottom, Pantoja defending his belt against the newcomer, Kaya Sakura. Shavkat re-securing his number one contender spot to fight Belal Muhammad. Cyril Gane defeated Alexander Volkov via controversial decision. You had the Bryce Mitchell finish over Carl Gracie, the Doo Ho Choi fight over Nate Landwehr. We got a lot to pack in here. That's just the pay-per-view. So, guys, let's start from the top. Pantoja defends his belt against Kaya Sakura. Where Kai, looked massive for 125. I knew he was going to go out there, be big, be powerful. And he went out there swinging with ill intent, really trying to put Pantoja away early, was putting everything into those shots, almost caught Pantoja with a flying knee early on. Pantoja ended up catching him with the strike, dropping him. And then as you saw, going into the second round, Pantoja was able to get the fight to the ground and get the choke, right? Just showed why he is the champ, why UFC, they are the top promotion for a reason. Now, Kai looked good. He went out there swinging for the fences. And that's kind of what's going to happen, though, if you go out there with that much reckless intent, fighting a guy who's that well-rounded, who's been there, who's done that, who's a true champion. That's exactly more than likely what's going to happen if you don't catch him, right? And Pantoja, after the fight, called out Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse came out, he said, "My black ass is retired." You can respect that, So it's like, what's next for Pantoja, right? I think that there's a kind of a clear-cut guy, and that's Kai Kara-France, another Kai, right? And I think Kai Kara-France, since knocking out Steve Erceg, I think with who Pantoja has beat and how many times he has beaten them, he's kind of like the lone wolf out there with a win, who's, I think, in the top 5, off the top of my head, and is exciting, who will definitely bring the fight to Pantoja, who's not going to be willingly taken down, right? So I think the next fight, if Pantoja stays at 125, I think Kai Kara-France is the fresh opponent. I think that's a next great opponent for the 125 belt. As for Kaya Sakura, he's now debuted, I think, at number 14 in the flyweight rankings. So, there's a lot that you can do with him. There's a lot going on at flyweight. I know Tim Elliott was joking that, he hasn't fought in so long, he was shocked that he was even in the rankings. Maybe give a Kaya Sakura and a Tim Elliott fight. That would make a lot of sense to see, if Tim still wants to compete. Because, Tim is in the twilight of his career. And, he could definitely go for another run at it, but we'll see. I think a fight with Kaya Sakura will show kind of right where Tim Elliott still is. But, there's a lot that Kai can do. Amir Albazi, even a Brandon Moreno, Steve Erceg. There's a lot that you can do here. I know Manel Cape is going to be fighting here this Saturday. So with Kaya Sakura, he definitely is not short of options, but I don't see Pantoja fighting Mighty Mouse. That would have been a cool fight, but I just don't see that happening. Moving on, Shavkat Rakhmonov re-solidifies his number one contendership after defeating Ian Gary in a back-and-forth fight, just kind of where Shavkat just won a lot of the grappling exchanges, except in that 5th round, everything's got a little dicey. But, kind of exactly how I predicted. Shavkat was just going to go out there and just kind of edge Ian. I didn't, even with Shavkat at that point having a 100% finish rate, I thought Ian Gary was going to provide enough problems for Shavkat to survive the fight, right? And that's pretty much exactly what happened. And as for what's next for Shavkat, obviously, is the fight against Belal Muhammad. And as for Ian Gary, his stock does rise in defeat with this fight. That's kind of like the going statement here, but it's true. And I think, right now, I think take some time off, evaluate the decision, and maybe wait till, honestly, I'd say International Fight Week next June, July. I forgot exactly when that is. But that, I think if Ian Gary just takes a little bit of time off, reset, and just kind of get himself back in there middle next year, there could be a lot of matchups, a lot of really good matchups. You got Joaquin Buckley and Colby Covington coming up. Who really knows what's going to happen with that fight? I'm going to be talking about that in a couple days. But with Ian Gary, his stock rose in defeat. So whatever he wants to do next moving forward, I think he can do whatever. But I would like to see him take some time off, let the weight class develop a little bit more going into the next year before making any rash decisions. But great fight, technical fight, wasn't, I wouldn't say action-packed, but who cares? Like, you got exactly what you should have gotten. And it was two guys at the top of the division fighting a tough, methodical, technical 5-round bout. Great fight. All right, guys, moving on. Cyril Gane defeats Alexander Volkov in controversial split decision in a what the fuck, right? I mean, it's so frustrating to think about. I mean, I forgot exactly if it was like the first or the third round, but like it was that second round that they even gave Cyril Gane, which was crazy. Like, you had Volkov, who had hurt Gane at some point, had that spinning back fist. That was super frustrating to see, where you had a clear victory for Volkov in a rematch, where he had kind of something to prove, and on a win streak. And a lot of respect for Cyril Gane, the way he handled that. He did not want to do that interview, but, professionally, you kind of still have to just go out there and, thank your team, thank the people who support you, thank the UFC, thank your sponsors, whatever the fuck, But his body language, everything just showed, like, dude, I didn't win that fight. Like, come on, And the UFC, Dana said, he's like, dude, you got fucked. He told Volkov, you got fucked. And moving forward, I hope they give him a really good, favorable matchup. But, trilogy. I know maybe people aren't clamoring to see it, but I wouldn't hate it either. Let them go back at it. But, whoever wins that third fight can move on. But then again, Volkov, I mean, he's on a streak right now, beating guys like Pavlovich, beating Gane. On paper, it's not a win, but he won that fucking fight. It just sucks to see the judges just fuck shit up. I'd love to be a judge, but honestly, like, I love talking about the sport so much and giving my pick so much and talking about who I want. I think that, like, it wouldn't be fair, but, like, I would love to be a judge and just help fix the problem, or even a referee, because I wouldn't be biased. Even though I'm a fan of these guys, if I'm sitting down at that chair, it's a job, right? It's like, I don't know, like, if you have a podcast, can you still be a judge? I don't know, because I honestly, I would love to insert myself into that position. Because it's fucking frustrating. You sit there and it's frustrating. I feel for Volkov. I feel for his team. Respect to Gane and his team and how they handled the situation. I can respect the fuck out of that. But nonetheless, one of the more obvious robberies that we've seen this year, recent memory, just sucks. It just sucks. But anyways, on to the next. Bryce Mitchell knocks out Kron Gracie, third round. And a lot of people, they're pissed off about the fight. They're saying that the Aljo fight and the Evil Ed fight should have been on the main card. But here's my thing. That's the one fight I missed on this whole fucking thing was Movsar versus Aljo. I had a family emergency that kind of happened. I had to handle that, and it happened literally during that fight. And so I missed the fight. I haven't rewatched it since. But I've heard it was a good fight. I heard it was about, a very technical fight. I heard that Aljo got robbed. But anyways, back to my point, though. Here's the thing. The UFC, they were punishing Aljo and Movsar for having lackluster fights. Aljo, yes, being a former champion, he's got that status, right? One of the bantamweight greats, right? But 36 years old. And I think that they thought that he was going to beat Movsar. I think that, because I don't think that they are thinking very highly of Movsar. They don't like the way he fights. And no disrespect to John Fitch. I hate to use you as an example here, but it's like so dominant in the grappling, but didn't showcase a lot of the striking because you didn't need to. Like, you took the fight where you were successful and you didn't take unnecessary risks like Movsar does, and has these uneventful fights for the fans when it comes to highlights, right? Striking highlights. So the UFC, they want to put up Bryce, who is the young 30-year-old featherweight. He talks a lot of shit, but also, like, he's very sellable. He's still young. He's an up-and-comer. He's a contender. His losses have aged well. Josh Emmett, who's a killer. Ilia Topuria, who's a champion now. And going against the Gracie, I think they knew exactly what was going to happen to Kron in this fight. That if, no matter what, Bryce was going to be able to match whatever Kron was going to do, and we were probably going to get a highlight finish. And I think that's what they wanted to do. Put a young Bryce Mitchell up with a big highlight finish over a Gracie name who they already knew wasn't at that level. So why not capitalize off the Gracie name and put up a young up-and-coming featherweight like Bryce Mitchell at the same time? And then we get a fight like Aljo and Movsar for free on the prelims. You got to look at it from that perspective. Like why would the UFC put it in that way? Because Aljo's 36, former champion, taking on a very boring, undefeated, up-and-coming contender. You put that on the prelims because you could sell that. We're giving you a great fight on the prelims for free, and you are. But like, if you put that on the pay-per-view, fans are still gonna fucking boo because it's on the pay-per-view and you're not seeing a knockout. That's why. And like, it's just, I understand why people like we should have Aljo and Movsar on the pay-per-view, but it's a business, and look at it from that perspective. I feel like that's exactly how they thought it was going to happen. Anyways, Bryce Mitchell said, "Fuck your fucking guard pulling shit," and just slammed him down, put him on Queer Street, and finished him off with 2 elbows. Beautiful finish. Bryce now back. I mean, took the time off appropriately. Took the right opponent, did it in the right way. I mean, you can't hit a guy like Bryce. I mean, just such a positive energy, such a good aura about him. He's got some pretty like wild beliefs, but honestly, like if anybody's going to talk to me about flat Earth, I think it's going to be Bryce Mitchell. But nonetheless, big win. They talked about him and Doo Ho Choi. I think Doo Ho Choi called him out, and he said that he liked the fight. I liked the fight. I think it would be a good test. I think Doo Ho Choi, which we're gonna just segue right into that, looks so flawless against Nate Landwehr. I mean, Superboy is now Superman for sure. I did not expect him to show up like that. I did not expect Nate to not show up like that, which is why I love the sport so much. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I make my picks, but like, I still like, I'm not upset. Like, it was a phenomenal fight, you know. So Bryce Mitchell, Doo Ho Choi, I think is a great fight for Bryce next. As for Crone, CJI, I'd like to see him in some grappling events. Why the fuck not? Like, go use your Gracie name with jiu-jitsu. If you're not going to strike with people, if you're not going to fight MMA, go back to the grappling. Why not? I'd love to see Crone in a CJI, UFC Fight Pass Invitational, something along those lines. I would love to see it. I don't know about you guys. I'd love to see it. But moving on, Doo Ho Choi knocks out Nate Landwehr in a flawless fight. I mean, just went out there and shut Nate Landwehr out in every facet of the game. Looked just fast, technical, crazy combinations, just mixed it up well, just the wrestling, jiu-jitsu as well. And then once he was just able to get him down in that fucking, oh man, those elbows in the ground. If you want, it's like what Big John says, if you want to scare a ref the most, you got to get a guy like Crucifix and just throw elbows, just start throwing elbows. Ref's going to stop the fight because they're there to protect the fighter, right? So, I mean, for Doo Ho Choi, now 2 in a row, 2 finishes in a row, 33 years old. He's back. He's back on track. Called out Bryce Mitchell. Bryce won his fight. Classic grappler versus striker fight, but I think that's a great fight. I love it. As for Nate Landwehr, everything going on, he had his opportunity to go out and throw some damage, and unfortunately it didn't go his way. 36 years old. I don't know, man. It's a tough one. Whatever he does next, I'm tuning in, and I'm watching, and I'm rooting for him. Big fan of Nate to train Landwehr. Tough fight where you just can't find like almost like a single second of success, especially over 3 rounds. But yeah, just shows like how much Doo Ho Choi has leveled up, and he's like now back on track to kind of like where the UFC had expected him to be 8 years ago. But as for Nate, back to the drawing board. No disrespect, because any given day that guy could fuck anybody up. Dominic Reyes defeats Anthony Smith, 2nd round. Dominic Reyes now back 2 in a row, doing it the right way. And I think a lot of people too are upset that this fight wasn't on the pay-per-view. Guys, don't put Reyes like in this, like he's trying to build back up the right way against the right competition. And him being the featured prelim fight was perfect. After getting that knockout win over Dustin Jacoby, comes back, step up in competition against Anthony Smith. Anthony isn't who he used to be, but it was the right next fight. And to not put him on that high scale with the extra pressure of a pay-per-view, it was a good opportunity for Dominic Reyes to perform at his highest abilities. And against Anthony Smith, who unfortunately, was going through what he was going through, maybe he shouldn't have taken the fight in the first place, but sometimes guys in his position, his mindset, they got to just go out there and compete, right? And at one point, let Dominic just tee off on him, fucking hit me, let's go. He was out there to get hurt. He wasn't out there to win. He was out there to just go out there and bleed and fight. He wasn't out there to go win a fight. And that's where Reyes was able to capitalize on that fight. As for Smith, I'm happy he didn't retire right away. Let him come back if he wants to. If he doesn't, just let him take the time off and do it in his own time with the right mindset, with the right clarity, talk to his family and his team and what he should do moving forward. But maybe a nice send-off fight for him. You know, somebody that's going to give him a good fight, but not who's going to move the needle in any way, shape, or form when it comes to, oh, if he wins, well, we'll put him back up against a number 10 guy, right? As for Reyes, again, for me, it's just take the time, pick the right opponent, maybe ready for a 15 guy. I'm not really sure. But with whatever Reyes does moving forward, just pick the right opponents correctly, because whatever he does now moving forward after losing so many times in a row, it's kind of what he's going to have to do. But I just can't think of an opponent off the top of my head in light heavyweight that would be suitable. Maybe you guys could let me know in the comment section. I don't know why I'm blanking so hard. But next up, man, Vicente Luque, Temba Garimbo. You know, I mean, Temba came in, short notice. Luque, I mean, a lot of people were saying, you know, Luque's back, this and that. I mean, yeah, I mean, look good. But I think it just kind of shows when you have these guys who are top 10, top 12 against guys who are top 20, you see the difference, right? And Luque went out there, slipped, ripped, found the choke that he always gets. As it was the anaconda, yeah. That or the darts, I mean, those are his moves. I was happy that he was able in that moment, especially when you get so excited, where you drop your opponent and you don't go for the follow-up strikes to give them an opportunity to maybe weather the storm and get back to their feet, grab a leg. Just grab the choke, sink it in, especially if you're so good at it, why not capitalize on it, right? And that's exactly what Vicente did, was able to get there, 52 seconds, get the job done, go home, unblemished. And again, like with Reyes, he's in a similar position where people are doubting that he is who he used to be. But I think that just with Luque, it's good that he didn't take damage in this fight, because if he wants to take a quick turnaround, he can. But at welterweight, I mean, what are you going to do? Right? Let's go. I mean, you have Michael Morales, who I'm pretty sure is booked. You have Carlos Prates. That would be a good one. I'm pretty sure him and Burns are buddies. Who knows what happens with Covington and Buckley? Well, Buckley already knocked him out. That's right. I don't know. Sean Brady? You got some weirdness. You got some fucking weirdness going on in there. Jack Della Maddalena? That would be a good fight, to be honest. Jack Della Maddalena, Vicente Luque? That'd be a good fight. As for Garimbo, back to the drawing board. And that was your opportunity to really go out there and jump right into the rankings. But got finished quick and decisively, so that's going to be tough. But, you know, props to him for showing up and fighting a top guy like Luque on short notice, because that takes some balls. Next up, Evelev, Sterling. I can't really comment on it, so I will talk about that on a different time. Legit, like, as, like, Sterling walked in the ring, like, I had some stuff going on, and literally, like, in that 15-minute window, I missed the fight, you know, and I haven't gone back to watch it. I've heard people say that they thought Sterling won the fight, that Aldo got fucked. That seems to be the going case with it, so I can't really talk on it, you know. I already talked about in my Bryce Mitchell breakdown about why I thought about all that, about the prelims, main card stuff, all that controversy. So if you want further details on what I think about why Mitchell was on pay-per-view and why Sterling and Movsar were on the prelims, go to that fight and look at that breakdown. Next up, Brian Battle, Randy Brown. Bit of controversy, right? You got some fuckery going on. You had Brian Battle, missed weight massively. And it was a bit of a quick turnaround since his last fight, you know, and he's a big guy. So I was a little concerned from the get-go if he was going to miss weight. You know, and he had Randy Brown, who's equally as big of a fucking guy. And that's kind of where you see the disrespect play into why Randy Brown was so pissed off. Because it's like, dude, I'm just as big as you. I'm cutting just as much weight as you. I'm supposed to be suffering just as much as you. I'm more, you know, he's pretty much just as active. He had that fight against Muslim, right? Not all that long ago. It might have been a bit of a minute ago, but I feel like it wasn't that long ago. No, UFC 302, he fought in June. So he's also had somewhat of a quick turnaround for a guy as big as he is to make that type of weight cut again. went out there, looked good, sharp, body shots. I mean, just looked really fucking good. Battle was able to really just battle through it, right? No pun intended. And you saw him kind of dig deep, but this is where you see we're kind of weight cutting. This is where it plays into it, right? Because you see Randy Brown's gas tank start to dwindle as the fight goes on, and you kind of see Brian Battle kind of start to pick up as the fight goes on. And is that because he didn't cut the full weight as to where Randy Brown did? And, would we have seen that same result if he cut those extra 4 pounds? We don't know. And that's where people start saying, about what the true punishments should be. The 20%, 30%. Yeah, I think that's a good, thing. I know Big John and Josh Thompson talked about the whole point deduction. That's a cool thing. I like that. But it's like, how are you going to get commissions to follow through with that? I don't know. That's tough. I like that. I think that's a phenomenal idea. If you go into that fight, like starting a point behind, it changes things. I like that idea, but it's like, it's weird because I don't know. I just don't see the commissions playing ball like that. But I like the idea. I like where you guys are thinking. I like that. But Battle got the split decision. A lot of people thought it was a robbery. It was a close fight. I mean, what are you going to do next for these guys? I mean, honestly, I talk about rematches a lot, but it's like, why not have these guys run it back? You have so much going on. There was animosity even after the fight. Randy Brown didn't even want to shake up after the fight because he knew, it was like, you motherfucker, like, I won that shit, like, you missed weight, you fucker. Like, ooh, I could see why Randy was pissed, but I don't know. Do it again. Rematch. Fuck it. Rematch. I'd like to see a rematch. All right, next up, Eric Anders defeats Chris Weidman in a catchweight fight. Weidman, who looked way better early on in that fight, dropped Anders at one point, and then when he kind of just like jumped the ghillie, was probably the biggest mistake he could have ever done. I mean, Chris Weidman is the definition of self-sabotage in some of his fights. You have the Luke Rockhold fight where he throws like the craziest spinning heel kick that you'll ever see, and you're just like, what the fuck, dude? Against a kickboxer, when you're not Chris Weidman just has a habit of like, that guy didn't beat you, you lost that fucking fight. Like, you lost that fight, that guy didn't beat you. I think Anders said he has 2 more fights left on his contract, maybe 1 more fight left on his contract. He says he wants to fulfill them. That would be cool. I'm sure there's a lot of good fun fights for him out there. I don't know, maybe him and Anthony Smith, retirement fight. Maybe that would make a lot of sense. Chris Weidman, also, I think he should retire. At this point, what are you doing? You got nothing to prove to anybody yourself. You're going to make money after this. Why are you going to do this to yourself? If you want to go out there, compete, and win, you can go to other organizations and do that at your age and dominate. But you can go to Gamebred FC and dominate. But it's tough because it's like, if you're out there trying to prove you're the best in the world, dude, you're not. And you're not even beating ranked opponents anymore. You're getting finished by unranked guys. So, I don't know. It's tough. I'm not the one out there. It's just tough to see, right? Next up, Joshua Van, man, defeats Cody Durden by decision in a fight, man, where I thought Cody Durden was just going to just have the experience, the edge, just the big brotherness to him. I thought that his pressure, I didn't think that he was, I honestly did not, I thought his cardio was going to hold up. And I know that Van lets the first round go and then takes off later on, and he fucking did, man. Joshua Van, I'm all in on the Joshua Van train. I knew he was going to be a killer, but I thought at 23 years old, I thought there was still some learning to do, some hurdles to overcome. I feel like in that Charles Johnson fight, that was a hurdle to overcome, and he's done that now. I mean, twice over with Edgar Shirez, now Cody Durden, where he was just really able to weather the early pressure takedowns of Durden, where what I thought was strange, when Cody had the takedown, he had the legs locked, everything, he was still like driving in, but it felt like it was for no reason. Because you see the look on Van's face, he's like, all right, like, I'm just going to just weather this and just relax, stay calm, and get to my feet eventually. But like, Cody wasn't really doing anything to try and like finish the fight. He was just trying to like control him, but like pressure him. But like, he was just blowing his own gas tank out. There was no damage being done. He wasn't equalizing. He wasn't zapping anything from Van. He was just holding him there and gassing himself out. And then once Van was able to get back to his feet, I mean, it was a different game. And the style, the game planning of what Van does, I'm all in for it, man. And whatever we do with him moving forward, fuck yeah, off to the races, Joshua Van. I'm all in for him. 23 years old, flyweight. This guy's a fucking problem. And as for Cody Durden, I think just game planning. I think you just blew your wad too early, and I expected you were either, I just did not expect him to his cardio to zap so fast, because after that first round he was done. He was done. It was just over. But just tough, man. Tough as nails. An absolute dog. Mini little Matt Brown out there. And, even in defeat, I feel like he didn't really lose any steam, because I think Joshua Van is that good. And Durden still, he showed heart. He showed toughness. He showed that his chin is good. While his cardio was there, he was dominating Van. But it's a 3-round fight, right? So congratulations to Joshua Van. Off to the fucking races for this kid. He's going to be good as fuck. Next up, Chiesa, Griffin. I mean, what are you going to do, back and forth. Chiesa just fought tall, long, and lanky. He was a little bit more sharp on the striking, which I was a little bit shocked on, but he was just able to go out there and get Max to the ground, fight his fight, and just eventually find the submission, which is exactly what he needed to do, put himself right back on track. And, a win like this over Griffin, yeah, I mean, Griffin's 39 years old, but he's still a tough guy. He's not going out there and getting finished very often. I mean, that was the first time he's ever been submitted. Only been knocked out once before. So, big win for Mike. And I think, you got to give him somebody. I mean, I think he said he's going for another run at it. So now it's 2 in a row. I mean, Tony Ferguson and Max Griffin, it's nobody to really sing about, but it's a good way to get yourself back on track on a winning streak and get your confidence in the right direction, right? So I think as long as he takes any opponent above where he was at, I mean, is just another step in the right direction. And being a welterweight and the way that he fights only benefits him as he gets a little bit older. He buys him a little bit more time, right? But big win. As for Max Griffin, retirement, no, because I think he still got it. And at 39 years old, he's not going to go out there and win championships. So what do you do with him, right? Max, okay. He has a very big win over a guy who, I mean, he's not really there anymore, but he is, Mike Perry, BKFC. Max Griffin had a fight with him, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, where, he really went out there and outclassed Mike Perry when Mike was, the UFC was really pushing him. And Max went out there and just shut him down. And I think, if you take the gloves off and put Max Griffin in a BKFC, game-bred MMA, bare-knuckle MMA situation, you got a star. And I think there's more money to be made for Max Griffin outside the UFC. I don't know where he is contract-wise, but I think that there's more money to be made for him outside of the UFC than where he's at right now. And I think that is no disrespect, especially with where he's at 39. All right, guys, next up, Chase Hooper defeats Clay Guida. First round submission, armbar, was just able to catch, the older Clay. Chase, who is no young man anymore. He has really just grown into his body. His striking has changed very much. He has evolved, and he's evolving into a complete fighter right in front of our very eyes. And with his length, his ability on the ground, the way that he uses his strikes, the front kicks, he fights very long and bladed, and he likes to catch you at the end of his strikes. And with him being so long, that only plays into guys getting caught in a lot of really precarious positions. And against Clay Guida, writing was on the wall in this one a little bit, but I think it was a good fight to get Chase just his confidence building again, let him evolve, let him round out his skill set. A good victory over a big name. And Chase, man, 25 years old now? He's 25. Big for the weight class. He's now 15-3, 4-fight win streak. You have to give him somebody. You have to give him somebody now a little bit more of substance. He's now put himself in this position where he can't really deny what he's doing. Maybe like a Bobby Green, something like that. All right, guys. Well, okay, so Clay, right? Kind of the story of this one. We have some old guys in here, older guys, some veterans. Clay's been in the UFC since I was a freshman in high school. I am 30 years old now. I am getting there. I feel my hands hurt and my knees hurt now. I know when it's going to rain. This man has been in the UFC since I was not able to drive a vehicle. I was not able to have a permit. Like, I was just starting my adult, like, I was a fucking teenager. Like, this guy's been in the UFC this long. So, no shame in retiring. I mean, if you want to compete, cool. But, like, keep doing these Polaris events, jiu-jitsu tournaments, wrestling tournaments. I'd watch a Clay Guida. I would continue to watch Clay Guida do what he does in a singlet. No homo. I would. All right, guys. Last but not least, Kennedy Nzechukwu knocks out Lucas Brzeski. First round knockout. I mean, Kennedy was just... Lucas had no sense of his distance in that fight. He had no sense of what was going on. And with what Kennedy was able... he just broke that distance, broke Lucas down, and was able to find the finish. I mean, it was beautiful. I was sitting there watching the fight, and I'm like, okay, well, this fight's going to end in like 10 seconds. Like, you see Kennedy just completely break that distance and just touch Lucas up and put him down. Like, I was just like, this fight's going to be over in about 10 seconds. And bam, like, it was over. It was done. Beautiful fight. Beautiful victory for Kennedy. It's now 2 in a row quickly. Doesn't have to cut any weight, right? So now he's kind of found himself a new footing at heavyweight. I'd like to see what he's going to do moving forward, but 2 big wins. Now, put a nice game plan into the 2025 season. Let a little bit of things play out with some of the heavyweights, and then make your move. Because now you got 2 big wins, knockout wins, first round knockout wins. Sit back and make your decision going into the next year. Pick carefully, Kennedy, because now is your chance to really re-solidify your name with this new fresh coat of paint, so to speak, in this new weight class. But great victory. As for Lucas, I mean, I don't know how that guy still has a job in the UFC. I mean, if you look at his resume, he has like 5 or 6 losses in the UFC. It's crazy. So, I mean, I'm assuming he's going to get cut here. But, all right, guys, if you're still with me, please hit that like and subscribe button. This has been a long video, 35 minutes. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Hopefully I've given you guys something to enjoy listening to on your day. But that's going to do it for today, guys. So let me know what you guys think, what you guys thought over the pay-per-view in the comment sections. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the matter. But, guys, that's going to do it for today. Mr. Mustache, MMA News out. Let's fucking go, fight fans.